welcome. So this episode of Mama Thrive is dedicated to creating and sustaining a strong sisterhood, because one of the most, actually probably the most powerful way that you can experience more support and feel like you're not alone and not isolated in the experience of motherhood is to have strong sisterhood around you. And by that we mean have other mothers who you feel really safe to share anything with and who you feel you can call on no matter what is going on in your life, for mutual support and understanding, and for kind of collaboration in working through the practicalities as well as the emotional stuff of parenting.
So what's the difference between sisterhood and just friends that are also mothers? Friends that are also mothers, or mothers that you hang out at the park with when your kids are playing and that sort of thing, doesn't have a sacred container holding it. And it doesn't have necessarily the level of safety and trust that you want to really feel vulnerable enough to share what's real for you. And that's where the power of sisterhood is having a space where you can be totally real and vulnerable and not feel like you're going to be judged. So in true sisterhood, there is no place for judgment. It's a space that feels really safe, that you know is contained, that will never leak outside of that container, will never be shared, and you're going to be held in just love and support without any judgment or competition or fear of how you'll be seen or what this will say about you as a mother, and all those other things that run through our heads that often run our actions and what we choose to share when we're in a public environment with other mothers.
So we've found that it's important to create that kind of safe space, in order to create that kind of safe space, to have particular things set up to kind of bring in a little bit more intentionality and a little bit more of a container, to bring in agreements into the space. And often we hear mothers saying, well, that's like a bit formal and not really something I'd be comfortable to bring to like my friends, and it's kind of a bit out of place because it's not just the way that we act in everyday life. But I've also found that underneath that, almost every single mother that we've encountered has the craving, the desire, like a really deep yearning to have those kinds of spaces. So underneath the kind of the awkwardness, there is such a strong need for it in all mothers to really have a deeper sense of connection, a more sacred space with other mothers, to not be kind of having to wear the masks and having to put on particular faces when interacting with each other.
And so besides the gift of safety and being able to be vulnerable and truly you, which is a pretty priceless gift in and of itself, when that space exists and that sisterhood exists for you, so much more opens up as well. So your sisters hold you to your own truth. They don't hold you to a philosophy or a label or their opinion or anything else, but they keep reminding you to come back to what's true for you and what's in your heart. So they're always guiding you back and supporting you to be guided back to your own heart, which is really powerful. They also remind you of all the greatness in you that you sometimes don't appreciate, recognize, acknowledge. It's really easy to hear our own inner critical voices and our own fears and our own doubts and allow that to drown out everything else. And in sisterhood, your sisters hold up those parts of you that you're forgetting, all the gifts that you are expressing into the world, that you are giving to your children day in and day out, and they remind you of that. And another thing that sisters do is they hold up themselves as mirrors for your light shadows. And your light shadows are the parts in you that you see in them that you think are amazing. Oh, she's so patient with her kids, or she's so gentle, or she's so playful, or whatever it is that you admire in them. And they hold that up for you to see that potential in yourself, for you to grow and learn to claim that within yourself. You wouldn't be seeing it in them if it wasn't within you somewhere. And so they hold within them the potential for you to claim more of yourself and for your growth. Is there anything else? There's so many things in the magic of sisterhood.
Yeah. Well, and there's a lot more in the safety aspect. Like we need, just as much as we need spaces to celebrate ourselves and celebrate each other, we really need spaces also to bring up
what's real for us.
Bring up feelings of shame, bring up feelings of guilt, bring up secrets that we're kind of holding, and that it takes energy to hold them inside and to keep them as secrets and to keep kind of judging ourselves and wanting no one else to see it. So it's important to have those safe spaces where you can share all of it without, and knowing that you are safe and you're not going to be ostracized, or
that the love remains constant regardless. And the same for parenting issues that you're struggling with by yourself, because it will say something about you or your child if you were to let anyone else know about it. That sort of thing, when the safety is there and you speak your truth out into the world, just into the space, even if your sister said nothing at all and just held that container for you, it would shift. Things would change for you just by speaking your truth, what's really, really real for you, and being able to express it in a place that feels safe to you.
So what we're recommending is for you to actually have a conversation with at least one sister, one friend who you feel close with, about creating regular space. And you don't have to get really elaborate with it. It can just be intentional that on this particular play date, when we're sitting and having this cuppa, we're creating a little bit more safety in the way that we share with each other. You can also make it a very intentional time with no children around and kind of have a dedicated circle, but it's not necessary. You can just create the intention around any space that you share together.
The key to it is intention, really. Once you're in agreement and you have your agreements in place, which we'll talk about in a second, intention is the key space. In fact, Kaya and I have situations where we can be just hanging out, as mothers do, and one of us will need sisterhood instead of just hanging out. And it is just a matter of changing our intentions, isn't it?
Yeah.
Of expressing that and changing the intention in the moment, and then the sisterhood space gets created.
Yeah, and some pretty universal agreements that you would bring into a space like that. One is confidentiality. So anything that your sister shares with you is held in confidence unless she specifically asks you to share it elsewhere. That's a core agreement to creating safe spaces.
Okay, and a third agreement that you might like to bring in too is that rather than give advice, unless it's specifically requested, what your job is to love, to support, to create space for her to share whatever she needs to share and feel safe doing so, and to support her in hearing what her heart is telling her is true for her. So it's often more powerful to ask a question than to give advice, for example. So you want to be guiding them back to their own truth, to their own heart, to what's real for them. And so often the questions are more powerful. That's probably the simplest way to get started. That's the simplest guideline. As your sisterhood starts to develop a little bit and you feel more confident in the safety, you can have room to start playing a little bit. And so you may ask for certain things, and you may have different requests that you can make of each other. And you might say, I need to share this and I am looking for advice. Or I'm just looking for love and support. I just need to feel loved up in this moment. Or I want to be guided back to my truth. Or even, I want to be called on my bullshit. So that can evolve as time goes on. And when you get started, the simplest one is probably just to support them coming back to what's true in their hearts for them.
And asking them, like, how do you really want me to support you right now? Asking them what feels true for them in terms of how they want to be received.
Asking them what they need is a really powerful question as well. And so the last piece of agreements that you might want to consider when you're getting started is simply to sit together and ask each other, is there anything else that you would need to have this space feel really safe and supportive for you? Yeah?
Yeah.
And that just gives some scope for you to both feel into what you need, because there's unique needs for every woman. And that just gives an opportunity to create even stronger safety and a stronger container.
And just the act of beginning conversations like this that call on a different level of intimacy between you and another mother is incredibly healing and opening in itself. Like, lots will flow on from that. It's just an opening to so much that your being will guide you to. Just trust the process.
The magic of sisterhood will go and evolve in ways that you can't even possibly imagine, and that we couldn't give you in a short video. So trust the process. So how would you go about getting started? Find one woman. If you have more, like if you have 2 or 3 close friends, then you can definitely create a circle. If you only have one, we call them sanctuary sisters. Just find one friend. That's all you need to create the safety of the space that you want. Bring this up with them. Talk about a desire to support each other in a deeper way, to be true and real with each other, to allow each other to really come back to your hearts and your truth. And then run through the basic suggestions for agreements to create some safety, to create the container. And then set an intention for when you'll use that space. Just a first one to get started. And that's it. You're off. You're away.
Enjoy. Fallen way down there.
Just be like, hello.
Mother thrive.